Now, when we look back upon the chronology of the last few years for Sri Lanka, we think of 2019 as the year of crisis, 2020 to 2023 as the years of turmoil, 2024 as the dawn of hope and stability, and the period we're living through now as the road to recovery and resurgence. Earlier this afternoon, the Honorable Prime Minister referred to the present as a moment of transition and a milestone as Sri Lanka works towards becoming what she called a beacon of hope. Now, for all of us, there is a great deal to be learned from the long Sri Lankan journey from crisis to resurgence. There are good practices to be understood and replicated, economic and developmental approaches to be better appreciated, and of course, there are pitfalls to be avoided as well. Now, this perceived need to exchange insights with and among a global community of experts and practitioners was a major part of the rationale behind the summit, and that is really what brings all of us together today. So, we have, honorable ministers, a 30-minute conversation ahead of us, and we thought we might begin with the big picture from both of you in your respective areas, economic growth as well as digital progress. So, if you could spend a few minutes outlining how you see your blueprint for Sri Lanka's resurgence in the years ahead. And Minister Suriyapperuma, if we might begin with you, the big picture about the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. It is such a privilege to be with you all today, with all the friends from far and near. You all have traveled all the way to listen to the Sri Lankan story as to how we did, what we did, and what are the lessons that we can take home. When the country was going through a lot of challenges, many who were not considering to be part of the political league decide to play a role because it was inevitable something different need to be done in Sri Lanka. People ask for governance, people ask for transparency in the engagements. It was no magic for us to come up with the idea to uphold those values that people are asking for, that brought up the change with overwhelming majority of Sri Lanka, voting for governance, zero tolerance for corruption, and for accountability in our engagements, because the previous path has not helped the country to come out from the mess that it was. So that allowed us to create a roadmap, which I would like to call it, a roadmap to take Sri Lanka to the next level. In that journey, the roadmap was based on few key criteria. To not to leave anyone behind as the first point, to ensure economic opportunities, connectedness, to have the voice, to have them heard in their process is a key engagement. Another aspect is to ensure the message of continuity, that we will not come and create disruption to the way how businesses are used to, individuals are used to, in terms of assisting them to grow up in their potential, to realize their potential to the best possible stage. Then the continuity, consistency in our approach allowed us to engage with the stakeholders from all different walks of life to take the country to the next level. So the financial stability at macro level was an important element. Sri Lanka was within the IMF program when we took over the government. Many expected that we would leave the IMF program and start moving a different direction. Contrary to that, we were engaged, we were talking to the teams of representatives of IMF for more than a year before the elections. So we knew what we were asking from them. They knew what they were expecting from us. So it was not alien to each other. Similarly, rest of the economic activities, we engaged with the business community in a manner to reassure that we will create certainty, we will provide the continuity, and we will make economic policies for the country that will allow businesses to realize their potential to the maximum level, to allow individuals to realize their potential, allowing them to go to the best, to the highest positions that they are seeking, allowing Sri Lankan businesses to connect to the global value chain. So as a country, people have asked for governance, transparency, and zero tolerance for corruption. We have promised to deliver that. It's not just limited to words that we have demonstrated within these 3 months of being in government. It was not an easy journey. Politicians refused to take the perks and privileges that was allowed to politicians before. So these were some of the key aspects that we built our campaign on, our economic policies on, to ensure taxpayers' money is used for the right cause. I suppose that's where the digitization, the innovation, that will nicely align and get connected to this story. The world has changed and it has started a journey of its own. So to address some of the gaps that we have as a country, during the economic calamity, many professionals unfortunately left the nation. So it has created a vacuum in many organizations, both in the private sector as well as in the state institutions. So technology, we are counting a lot on the technology, on innovation, new ideas to take Sri Lanka to the next level, because incremental changes will not going to help Sri Lanka to move out of this crisis that we are in. We need a different approach, next level of thinking. So I suppose our engagements, our approaches were focusing on all these key ideas. So as we move on, perhaps we should be able to discuss more on them. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Minister, for that high-level roadmap, outlining the roadmap for us. And Minister Weeraratne, if we might come to you now, about your vision for the digital economy in the years ahead as Sri Lanka traverses this road to resurgence.
Right. Thank you. And my pleasure being at a very insightful forum like what you are having today. So in digitalization, I think Sri Lanka is having a high potential to be a key player in the whole digitalization space in the world. So, however, due to various reasons in the past, we haven't been able to achieve the true potential and reach the targets we were having all throughout in our past history. So this time, when we came into power, like we understand, we came with a clear mandate that digitalization is one of the 3 main pillars that can change this country for betterment. So in that, we take 5 main areas when it comes to digitalization. One is there's a digital economy where we currently have about 3.5 billion value creation in the digital space. Where we want to take it to 15 billion by 2030. Then there's a digital industry. Again, as you know, Sri Lanka defaulted its sovereign debt payment a few years ago. So to come up out of that, the foreign currency scarcity issue, this digital industry can bring the much needed foreign income to the country. So we want to grow that to 5 billion industry by 2030. Then to facilitate that, we need to build the right engineers in that space to build the engineers who are much needed in the today's ever-fasting digitalization technological space with AI, blockchain, and data analytics and so on. The fourth one is about the digital governance. So it's not that Sri Lanka hasn't spent money in the digitalization and creating government services in the past. We have spent so much money spending all the much taxpayers, the collections and so on. However, the expected outcome is not there. There are so many systems that's been developed as silos working in various departments, so many duplications, there's no real integration between those systems. So how we can get out of that and create a proper DPI platform and come up with a national blueprint for digitalization and get this platform into a single interworking network is the fourth main pillar that we are having. The fifth one is about how digitalization can help all other industries to increase their productivity, improve quality, and also reduce cost, and be a competitive industries in the world market, because today's market is not just within Sri Lanka, but it's the world. So how digitalization can help those industries. So in that space, like, we created this digital economy ministry because we understand digitalization is one of the main subjects that can take the country and go for a drastic change in a quick time. And so if the digitalization is done properly, like any economy can boost by 2 to 3% in a quick period of time. So that's where we are heading, and this government is giving priority to that.
Right. Thank you for those opening remarks, Minister Weeraratne. In fact, we will come back to a couple of points you raised and do a deeper dive into them in a few minutes. And now, Mr. Suriyapperuma, if we might come back to you, governance and transparency were two of the key words you began with, right? Governance at all levels, a more transparent functioning of institutions. And one of the things the Sri Lankan economic crisis did reveal was the lack of institutional coherence. Different public and financial institutions often seem to be working at odds with each other, unfortunately. And this is, not by any means unique to Sri Lanka. This does happen across the world. But drawing lessons from this and the recovery and the signs of recovery that you're seeing, how do you think we can build institutional frameworks that actually work more seamlessly with each other to ensure holistic growth in developing countries especially? And there is a second part of this question as well, because of your long background in the private sector, sir. How do you think private businesses can work more closely with government to support Sri Lanka's ongoing reforms?
Thank you. I suppose it's very relevant to today's context. If you go back a few years, we were like yourself, seated there, minding our own business, glued to the phone, instead of paying attention to what is going on. So the outcome of that was politicians have taken the country for a ride. As you said, institutional framework have broken down. Rules were there only in the books. Nobody paid attention until the point it was a calamity that it's difficult to come out. So this is where it is very important. We ourselves, as I said, like you all, we were in the private sector. I myself, for a period of 10 years, was in the government service as well, attached to the Securities and Exchange Commission of Sri Lanka. So we saw the way how things were happening and the institutional framework, how it was degrading to a level that politicians are above law. There are laws limited to books, rules limited to books, discretion provided to individuals to override provisions in law. That has resulted the country not generating and collecting the revenue it should have collected. So it was much easier in the past for the government to borrow instead of really earning it. And government has borrowed to the point that they could not anymore borrow it, even to repay the debt or the interest components that were due. We being in the private sector, it was evident that it's a nosedive and it's going to crash, but people did not believe. So it gave an opportunity for us to come forward, engage with people, create that level of awareness, talk to them. Unless we do something differently as a country, we won't be able to come out. So it gave an opportunity for us to come up with new ideas, share our new thoughts with people that they were willing to listen to and willing to believe that we have another shot. We have another opportunity. It's like innovation. Sometimes challenges forces people to innovate. Sometimes opportunities forces people to innovate. Sometimes People are born with genius individuals, will come up with new ideas. In our case, in Sri Lanka, country, people as a whole, as a nation, we ask for a new way of looking at the country. So put that concept into innovation as well. As a nation, we are looking at new ways of doing things. Institutional framework is something relevant to that. We need to look at new ways of doing things in terms of revenue. We need to look at new ways of doing things to get our reforms in the private sectors and the government sector, new ways of managing some of the very large institutions which are tail heavy because politicians have recruited so many people. Government institutions were used as tools to load their political supporters. We had to look for new ways to get connected with people. So, as I mentioned earlier, it gave us an opportunity to come up with these new ideas to get connected to people, to come up with reforms that the country is looking for. Many thought we will in fact take over private businesses, we will acquire the assets of individuals, etc. Instead, we start championing the cause, allowing businesses to become the best that they can be, facilitating their growth journey, allocating finance for SMEs, allocating finance for research and development, allocating finance for reform in the budget, for example. Billions and billions have been allocated. So this is to bring about the change what we were speaking about. So that is words literally in action. If we travel this path, if we communicate our message well to people, particularly give the right message to investors, that we are serious of what we are talking of, and Sri Lanka is ready for business. The message was very well taken by the Sri Lankan investors. We could see the Colombo Stock Exchange was performing at one of its best level since we took over. That means we have instilled the confidence among the business community that we are going to do the right thing. Similarly, our engagements, the debt negotiations with the international creditors, that was another notch. It took us to the next level. Independent rating agencies validated our move and the approach. So this shows we are ready, we are serious. Obviously, it will be with some challenges, some of the hard decisions that we need to make. But as the government, we are ready to make those hard decisions, obviously in consultation with the stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Now, Minister Weeraratne, coming back to you, one of the 5 pillars you emphasized was about building the technical and technological workforce, digital skilling at all levels, right? And President Dissanayake too yesterday spoke about how innovation and entrepreneurship would have to be a core focus that Sri Lanka retains in the years ahead, right, to reach new highs. And at the same time, it's not just about engineers, it's also about building the capacity of regulators and policymakers, because you have gone on record in the media recently speaking about how certain laws in Sri Lanka need to be upgraded, modified, adapted to certain new emerging digital realities, right? How is Sri Lanka going about this process of workforce building at all levels, including capacities of regulators too?
Right. So today, Sri Lanka, we are generating about 12,000 engineers per annum, both from public and the private sectors. So we want to engage private sector more and more because we believe that this is a fast change in technological space where private sector can play a key role in creating the right engineers. So at the same time, we want to bridge the gap between the public and the private sector educational institutions, because this curriculum should meet to the industry requirements. So the industrial forums which come up with their needs in terms of the different the professional qualifications as well as the different categories of job roles. So these details will help the institutions to come up with the proper curriculums to create the right engineers to come into the industry. And also it's always, we have to look at what is the demand that there in the global market. Thereafter, there are so many research and development activities that are happening in all these universities. However, the commercialization of those research is at the very minimum level currently. That is because of maybe the appetite for risk taking is not good enough in the countries like Sri Lanka, and also the availability of the financial facilities for them to take those risks and try to build a very valuable company eventually. So how the government can come in between this situation and create the right startup ecosystem is something, again, we are evaluating wholeheartedly. So that the government also will play a key role by creating funds of funds kind of facilities. Right. So that we can look at what are the right research and development that are happening in these institutions and get them, handhold them to make them commercialize. So that ultimately it will create the IP within the country, and IP creates the value for this industry. So that's that. And also we are looking at create the right startup ecosystem by bringing all the venture capitalists and other funding agencies to the country. And we are working with all the regional other countries within this region also to extend certain support in order for us to create that environment here. Thereafter, we need to bring in the right the legal frameworks as well. Yeah. So data protection acts as well as the cybersecurity and so AI governance policies. So all the legislation activities are also currently underway. So as you know, we have act passed for Data Protection Act, and currently we are in the implementation phase. So we have to create the right awareness within the industry with all the government and private organizations to see how their system should be compliant in order to support this act. And for that we have to give them a right educational programs, hand-holding for them to change their systems to meet the compliance. So those activities we are currently engaged with. And the cybersecurity also, there was a loggerhead between the defense and the civil organizations to see what sort of the bill should come out. Because at one point there was an idea a single act should suffice for both national security as well as the civilian security of in the cybersecurity space. Now that the conflict also we have resolved. So we seriously understand that civilian matters should be resolved and looked after by the civil organizations. So and also the defense to look after the national security aspects. So that therefore we will come up with two bills. One is to look after the cybersecurity on the civilian space, one for the defense space. Similarly to even for AI, so there's a policy that is currently being generated, and we are looking to enhance that to adopt AI without actually, while the proper governance is taking place, not to hinder the creativity and come up with the innovation. So that's very essential in my understanding.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that. And Minister, turning to you once again, you began by speaking about the need to take businesses to the next level by plugging them into global value chains, right? And you've also spoken just now about the strong message sent out to investors about the ease of doing business, which is coming to prevail in Sri Lanka. In the media, you've talked about, you've set a goal that Sri Lanka should become Asia's top FDI destination. Now, what approaches and measures do you think are needed to attract greater amounts of FDI to the country? And how would you implement that?
Thank you. Sri Lanka was known in the past seated next to India with with the close proximity to over 1 billion of population. In Sri Lanka located in a maritime route with lot of potential. That was the past. Perhaps 20, 30 years back, Sri Lanka was well known for cricket. I suppose the world famous cricketer is with us in the audience as well. But we want the future Sri Lanka to be known as a case study, a phoenix rising from the ashes after going through bankruptcy. Our wings are based on the governance, zero tolerance for corruption. Our focus is to take Sri Lanka for growth, facilitate that growth. And that growth will come from one angle is from investments, that we need to invite investors both locally and overseas to come and invest in this beautiful nation. We have some unique value propositions that Sri Lanka can offer as a country to the world, to investors. As I mentioned earlier, we are next to India, and there's a massive market that we have access to, so much of lessons to learn from India, technological advancements, ideological advancements in the space of innovation, so many unicorns coming out of India. So much to learn from the way how Indian businesses, Indian ecosystem has worked. And Sri Lanka can be a stepping stone for investors who want to enter into the Indian market. Similarly, in the region, Sri Lanka plays a crucial role because of the maritime location that we are in. So much of opportunities to many countries across the region. We are very serious of exploring more trade opportunities in other countries, not by keeping Sri Lanka as a closed nation, by opening our doors. It is two-way traffic. We need other countries to allow their products to come into Sri Lanka. We need our Sri Lankan exporters to take our products to the world as well, to showcase our innovation, new ideas, as I said, unique value proposition. We are blessed to have the access to green energy. We can take it to the next level. The SME sector, particularly with the support of investors, can brand them as they are produced with 100% green energy if that segment is explored well. 100% with natural products if those segments are explored well. We are renowned for our brand, some of our produce, cinnamon, Sri Lankan tea, etc., to create value addition instead of going for a typical bulk raw material approach, create value addition. So much of potential and opportunities that our SME sector can invest, foreign investors can come and invest. When foreign investors come to a country to invest, they look at certainty, stability, enforceability of law, prevailing legal framework, how secure their investments in Sri Lanka, will there be challenges, taking dividends out, will there be challenges? That's why the new government have started laying the foundation to bring about the investment protection bill for the first time in Sri Lanka. That is to give certainty, assurance to investors. Investors are not even in Sri Lanka once the businesses are up and running. Our labor markets need to facilitate what the investors are seeking for. Our legal system should behave in a manner to provide the certainty, fairness in approaching, getting things done. Our investment interpretation of regulation, not changing the law every now and then, because feasibility when investors do to come and invest in Sri Lanka, that is based on the prevailing conditions. After 2 years down the line, if Sri Lanka changes our regulations and laws, that takes away the factors. The feasibility report has put a strong weight. It takes the equation out and the profitability will be taken out from the equation. So our approach, our message to investors is we will provide that level of certainty to investors, protection of investors, the amounts that they are bringing in, facilitate the repatriation subject to the prevailing rules and laws. Very importantly, we have a talent pool in Sri Lanka that can be made use of. We have natural resources in Sri Lanka that investors can make use of. Our geographical location will allow investors to access many markets with much ease. So there are lot of positives that Sri Lanka has to offer. As the new government, our intention is to facilitate them to the fullest extent, to make ease of doing business in Sri Lanka very much easier, to support them, to facilitate them. That is where our single window initiative that we were speaking for many decades that has not materialized. Current government has prioritized this as one item, which allows investors to get their work done with less hassle to facilitate, just to name few. So many things are ahead, but if there are any challenges, our intention is to strengthen the institutional framework. So instead of investors coming and reaching out to politicians to get things done, there's a clearly laid out process. Digitization has played the role, allowing investors to get connected from overseas, get the work done within a short period of time. I think these are our priorities, and I'm sure it will pay dividends in years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, for emphasizing the access to India and collaborations with India in the earlier part of your response, because that helps us segue to our final question to you, Minister Weeraratne. Sri Lanka has emerged as a strong proponent of the DPI model, which India has developed and pioneered in some ways. And earlier this month, Sri Lanka hosted both its first International DPI Summit, which was followed just a couple of days later by a BIMSTEC conclave that focused on regional DPI cooperation. And in interviews, you have spoken at some length of DPI as being the backbone of Sri Lanka's future digital transformation efforts. Separately, you have also forecast that the country's digital economy could touch and even cross $15 billion by 2030. And you mentioned that towards the beginning of this conversation as well. Now, how is Sri Lanka actually going about building its DPI, and what international partnerships is it forging in this regard? And how might some of these infrastructures and the innovations that result from them help Sri Lanka meet its multi-billion-dollar digital economy targets?
Right. So it is is it essential that any government understand this digital space? What is the approach to get the proper infrastructure and the plan and the layout done? So they are like DPI is a way to go, digital public infrastructure, because now no more like these platforms are going to be platforms that are only serving for a single department or a ministry. So it has to be looked at as a national platform where multiple use cases are going under single system, so that the management, the upgrades, and also serving like continuation and the sustainability of those platforms will be much higher when it is like adapted in multiple scenarios, the single platform. So in the DPI space, digital ID plays a key role. Digital ID. So we are going to implement digital ID to start with. There's a ENIC project that is currently getting implemented within the Department of Registration of Persons. And from that, like, we are going to start giving the digital IDs. And that platform will be soon get upgraded to MOSIP-based digital ID platform. So that will have the biometrics-based authentications like fingerprint scanning, facial recognition, and iris scanning. That will be the key platform to identify any citizens of Sri Lanka. Thereafter, we have to build the digital payments. So digital payments, like when we like study the markets like India, like you have done it very well. The digital payments, where even the very small shop by the roadside is able to collect payments on digital mediums. So we want to create the same ecosystem and the digital payments environment in Sri Lanka. It's not that we haven't tried digital payments in the past. We have a Lanka QR-based platform where the QR-based payments been introduced. However, the adaptation of those services are not into the expected levels. Due to various reasons, it could be maybe the fees that are getting charged for these transactions, or maybe there are certain fear of going into digital space, or maybe there are fear of getting into the tax brackets if the payments are disclosed through digital mediums. And also the people are not being properly created, I mean the awareness not been created properly. So that the public doesn't know like what are the benefits that they actually get out of these platforms, such as having a proper registration of all the income and expenditures will allow them to even produce them into the banking systems and get maybe the debt facilities. So they are not aware. So what are the benefits that they are getting? Therefore, like those they haven't actually migrated to digital-based payments from the cash-based payments. So currently, in the society, we have about 1.5 trillion rupees in circulations. Those money we want to get into the banking system so that those money can be put into the proper investments in the country. So we want to get digitalization of payments, and we want to like re-establish this QR code-based payments, and also to look at how we can incentivize people going into digital-based payments so that the adoption can be proper and create at least maybe like 20%, 30% payments out of digital payments. As a first step in that, we have recently launched a service called GovPay, so that the government payments now can be made through the digital mediums. And currently we are connected to 16 government departments, and also like we are going to expand it by another 30 by April. So that will allow us to get people to use digital-based payments more and more. And also the GovPay, the good thing is, currently not many the public departments are having a proper IT backend systems. So there's no proper way of them getting the payments and then getting into the accounting platforms. So GovPay actually providing the interfacing to those departments as well, so that even though the final reconciliation is done in the manual mode, it will allow them to start receiving digital payments, because we cannot wait until the ideal ecosystem to be built in order for us to go for digital payments. So that's a good start, and within like couple of weeks' time, we see a huge adaptation of digital payments like that. So similarly, there were a few other platforms also we launched in the past few months, and to reduce the people wasting their time on queues and transportation, and for those public to get the government services done online from anywhere they are staying. So by these mechanisms, like we are expecting the time saved in the public to be utilized into the economic activities, as well as the wastage of time and the efforts in the government institutions to reduce, so that it will ultimately help to minimize the government expenditures. So that's our strategy, and with this whole DPI arena, like we are going to be bring the national blueprint of services and get all the government departments digitalizations to be driven by a single entity. We can provide the proper guidance to all these departments to get the systems done, so that it will ultimately add to the whole digital environment of Sri Lanka.
No, thank you very much, Minister. I think you've touched upon quite a variety of points here, right? I mean, clearly what you're working towards is strengthening a base of infrastructure and operationalization, be it in terms of digital identity, payments, as you talked about, strengthening intellectual property regimes, working towards commercialization, and of course this business of interoperability between government departments, which is really the backbone of e-governance and smart governance. And all of this together, as I understand, constitutes the base upon which a superstructure of innovations can then be built. I think that's a remarkably well outlined roadmap towards Sri Lanka's resurgence, and thank you very much for that. And I really think much of this conversation can be very well summarized by the phrase you used, sir, about Sri Lanka being a phoenix rising from the ashes. I think that resonates deeply with all of us and is a very, very inspiring note on which to end this conversation. So thank you very much once again for being part of this conversation at the inaugural edition of this Innovation Island Summit. We would love to engage with you in the future. So thank you both very much.